Hello everyone, I am Burger, and I'm here with a One Piece video where I will be talking about a particular subject that is in the title of the video. Everything I am about to say is an opinion, so please take it with a grain of salt because my opinions are subject to change on this subject. So if you have anything to say, please tell me and I am likely to take that information into account. So without further ado, let me discuss, can Luffy defeat Kaido? Now what I'd like to do here is start with a short answer and then get into my long answer. But when people do a short answer, usually it's just one or two words. I think I'm going to have to go with a whole sentence for my short answer. And the answer to the question of, can Luffy defeat Kaido, is no, unless he gains more strength. So, I'm going to talk about why I don't think Luffy is strong enough in his current state, but he can perhaps get strong enough if the circumstances are met. So first what I'm going to talk about is how strong is Kaido, and to start with, I'm going to reference the cloud he jumped off of. And I'm going to say that I think the cloud he jumped off of is largely irrelevant because it's hard to quantify just how strong jumping off a cloud makes him. I guess it makes him pretty darn strong, but I can't math, and furthermore, in One Piece, I think someone's physical strength is less important than how strong their willpower and their haki is. And that is because I think Luffy's physical body is much weaker than his spirit that he uses to improve his haki. And I think this because he seems to use armament haki to block sometimes weaker attacks. But now I'm going to go into back on the subject of how strong is Kaido. Now they gave us all those stats of how many times he was attempted to be executed and how many times he was defeated or got surrendered, and I think that is it's just to simplify his status, to explain how much status he has as the strongest creature. And now to get something that's a bit more easier to compare to Luffy, I'm going to say that Kaido has the same status as Big Mom. They're both Yonko. And Luffy seemed weaker than Big Mom. Whether you think Big Mom is really weak or really strong, there was that scene where Luffy used a Kong gun against Big Mom, and it did not phase her at all. Whereas, even though Katakuri was much stronger than Luffy at the beginning of their fight, his very first Kong gun sent Katakuri flying a very, very far distance. And that is why I think that the fact that Luffy's Kong gun didn't phase Big Mom at all really means something, because every single person he's hit with a Kong gun has appeared to take a relatively large amount of damage. Now, Katakuri did block the very first Kong gun against Luffy, and it still sent him flying very far. And I just reread Luffy versus Katakuri, and that is why I'm saying this. So now that I've established that Luffy's Kong gun is extremely strong and it didn't phase Big Mom at all, there was also that one chapter that I felt was kind of weird and unnecessary. During the chase of Big Mom chasing the Sunny, there was that scene where she caught up to the Straw Hats, and Jinbei, with the help of the other Straw Hats, managed to deflect her. Now, this scene kind of made Big Mom look weak, in my opinion, but then again, she was starving to death, and furthermore, they didn't actually deal any damage to her. They just kind of deflected her, knocked her back, and prolonged the chase. And the last thing I'm going to say about Big Mom regarding Luffy's strength is when Big Mom used that Elbaf spear, that foreign threat. I'm not sure why. I think it has two names. I'm not sure why I've got that in my head. I have a strong feeling that that would have seriously injured Luffy, even in Gear 4th form. Because I think in Gear 4th, well, I was about to get into some serious speculation there. I'm just going to avoid what I was about to say. Basically, I think it still would have hurt him in Gear 4th. And now I'm going to go into how can Luffy gain power while in Wano. I have a feeling that Wano is going to be a very, very long arc. Because if you start listing off all the characters that are expected to be in Wano, it's just an absolutely massive list. And then when you think about, okay, Big Mom might be in Wano based on what she said recently, and who's she taking with her? That's even more characters. I feel like it could be even longer than Dressrosa. And then Wano appears to be a rather large island. Like, Dressrosa was a very small island. It was densely populated, but it was a very small island. I get the feeling that Wano is more like an actual island nation. Not something you can walk across in a day, or even, a week, maybe, for a normal person. And, I think that, there's a lot that's going to happen there, and a lot of room for Luffy to gain more strength, which, seems to be the pattern now, doesn't it? Luffy went on a side quest to rescue Sanji, and in the process, he gained a ton of levels. He should be able to unlock the new branch of perks soon. Perhaps Gear 5th or Awakening. So, if he gets either of those, that could certainly improve his chances of beating Kaido a bit, but I think that wouldn't be enough. So let's just speculate about the enemies that he could be fighting. There is a chance that some of Kaido's subordinates are even stronger than Katakuri. Because, just because the Yonko don't all go out into all-out war against each other, doesn't mean that one's army is not stronger than the others. Because, just because you have a big army that you think is stronger than someone else's big army, doesn't mean you want to go to war with them for little benefit, because you would take heavy casualties on both sides. So I think it's even possible that Kaido is even stronger than Big Mom, although, I mean, like, those stats they were listing off saying he was captured this many times, lost this many times, wouldn't die if it's a one-on-one fight, bet on Kaido, that seems to imply he's stronger than Big Mom, but it's unclear about his subordinates. I think it would certainly be interesting if he's got stronger subordinates than Katakuri, because Luffy versus Katakuri was awesome. So if we could get another great fight before something big happens, that would be great. And it's almost certainly going to happen because we've got a whole arc ahead of us. Since when does Luffy go straight to the final boss? He's going to fight someone else, someone stronger than Katakuri in the near future. That's the way I perceive it, at least. The next thing I can talk about of ways Luffy can gain strength is gaining allies. Luffy almost always gains allies in every single arc. So what allies is he going to gain? Well, there's the remaining members of the Kozuki clan. Okay, we've got that. But I also made a video about how I think that there are lizard people in Wano. And that was me just pointing out a particular panel from the first time we saw Wano, and that showed this face of a person, and this face of the person did not look human at all. Nor did it look like a mammal or a fish, it kind of looked like a reptile. And just knowing that there's a race of reptile people, the reptile equivalent of minks and fishmen, comes with a lot of implications. So they could be potential allies as well. That, like in Dressrosa, Luffy teamed up with the dwarves, which nobody was expecting to see. Like, you couldn't predict that there were going to be dwarves in the story before they got to Dressrosa. It wasn't a thing you could predict. So you never know what allies Luffy is going to take on. So he's certainly going to gain more allies. That's just the way it goes. And whether this allies are an entire group of people or just a few very strong people, either way, it's going to help him a lot. The second to last thing I'm going to talk about in regard to Luffy gaining strength is I don't think he's going to be exploiting Kaido's weakness. And the reason for that is he just tried to exploit Big Mom's weakness by making her emotionally distraught so that they can murder her in front of her family. Kind of cruel when you say it like that. Anyways, they already tried that, and basically comes down to Yonko don't really have a weakness that you can exploit. They're just too strong. You need to be strong enough to damage them in the first place, because even if you can make them weak enough that they can take damage, if you can't give them damage in the first place, there's really nothing you can do. And as I mentioned earlier, Luffy's Kongun didn't seem to do a lot. It is possible that Luffy can do 2 or even 3 King Kong guns in a single battle, but I'm still not sure that would be enough with the amount of prestige that Oda has given Kaido. I mean, he's just given him an insane amount of prestige. I mean, the fact alone that he's of equal status to Big Mom, and then the other stuff he gave him, like jumping off a cloud, he'd jump off a freaking cloud! That's crazy. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be exploiting a weakness. And now on to the last subject. I've got a 15-point list of things I need to cover in this video, and I'm on the last one. And now the last thing is something that I do think is plausible, now that we're getting into the end of the story. You know, we're in the home stretch of One Piece. I mean, he's taking on the Yonkos, but this home stretch could potentially be 10 years long. For all we know. We just don't know how long the story's going to be. Oda's always saying how the story always ends up longer than he plans. And that is a special weapon. And now, this may be an ancient weapon, it may not, but they could have some weapon that is capable of injuring Kaido, or something that can increase the characters we know are going to be fighting Kaido's strength to the point where they can damage Kaido. Now, we saw as Luffy agreed to make an old woman emotionally distraught for the sake of killing her at her weakest point, which is not something you would have necessarily thought he was going to do. He's often about defeating his enemies head-on, but he tried the assassination attempt of Big Mom, and that says something about how he's grown, and that he's willing to actually use tactics, and that he's not just going to face his problems head-on if he has another option. So somebody could come up with a great plan that's maybe not necessarily exploiting a weakness, but maybe it's luring Kaido into some sort of trap. And the details of this trap, I don't know, because we don't know a whole lot about what's going on in Wano currently. I mean, we know the state of the country, but that's not much. We don't know what sort of forces and powers and infrastructure we have to use at our disposal to kill Kaido. And then, you never know, there could be some surprise of like, oh, what if Blackbeard shows up? What if Akainu shows up? We don't know who's going to show up. And I personally am under the impression that the world government is hiding a power stronger than Akainu. That's the impression I'm under. Just because of how much secrets the world government tends to keep. We don't know how strong CP0 is. Could they show up? We don't know who from the world government is going to show up, if anyone. So there's that. And I think that I've laid out a lot of information, and basically, the arc has just started, so maybe I'll make some more videos about what specific ways Luffy can gain strength in the future. But, at the beginning of an arc, there's the beginning of possibilities. It's very exciting. And, just so many things happen in every single arc in One Piece, and this seems to be setting up to be a very long arc, so I'm just really freaking excited, and I enjoyed talking about this. Now, I'm not really hell-bent on any of the things I said, so if you disagree with me, I would love to hear you say it. Really. I love to talk about One Piece. I love to hear other people's opinions, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I'm that good at reading manga. There's things I always miss. It's hard to read it without color and motion and stuff. Anime is much easier to interpret, in general, with the color and the motion and the individual voices, so you know who's talking with each word bubble and don't get distracted. So that's it. That is how I think Luffy would defeat Kaido, is he would have to gain power in any number of ways, and I think that's something that very well could happen, as Luffy does gain quite a bit of power every single arc. So let's go, Luffy. Let's see what you can do. You're taking on the strongest creature. Let's go. That's gonna be for today, everyone. Bye!